7 here, 2020 football season. These are the noon games. There's quite a bit for now, so I'll jump into them. Clemson, Georgia Tech. Clemson demolished Miami 42-17. Trevor Lawrence, 292 passing, 3 touchdowns, plus 1 rushing. Travis Etienne, 149 rushing, 2 touchdowns, 8 catches, 73 yards. Defensively, 5 sacks, 3 turnovers there. Georgia Tech, they beat a pretty good Louisville team, 46-27. Jeff Sims, 249, 2 touchdowns, plus 64 rushing and a touchdown. He had 450 yards defensively, 3 sacks, 3 turnovers. I don't think this will be close. Clemson looked like the #1 team in the country. I think they kill Georgia Tech. All right, Cincinnati, Tulsa. This actually might be a pretty good All-American game. Number 8 Cincinnati against Tulsa, who's coming off a big upset against UCF. Cincinnati, their last win a couple weeks ago, 28-7 over USF. Desmond Ridder, 143 passing, 2 touchdowns, but 3 interceptions. Jared Dokes, 102 rushing and a touchdown. They had 4 turnovers in that game. I don't think they can do that against Tulsa. Tulsa, they can light it up at times with their offense. Defensively, they had 3 sacks, forced 5 turnovers, and had a kick return for a touchdown. Tulsa, they beat UCF 34-26. Zach Smith, 273, 3 touchdowns and a pick. They turned over 3 times themselves, but they forced 3 turnovers. So basically, both teams turned over a lot and turned it over in their last games. I kind of want to go Tulsa with the upset here just because Cincinnati turned it over quite a bit, but I think Cincinnati will actually bounce back in this one, and they'll beat Tulsa. All right, Pitt and Miami. Pitt's coming off a second straight heartbreaking loss. They lost to Boston College 31-30 in overtime from a missed extra point. Pittsburgh got a touchdown, missed extra point that would have tied it, and ended up losing. Kenny Pickett, 266 passing, 2 touchdowns, a pick, plus 1 rushing. Defensively, 5 sacks. Patrick Jones II had 3 on his own. Miami got killed by Clemson 42-17. Derek King really was off his game. They had 3 turnovers. That one, I think Miami's going to bounce back in this one. I think they get the win over Pitt. Auburn, South Carolina. Auburn stole one against Arkansas. They should not have beaten Arkansas. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go watch the end of that game. He fumbled on the snap, but on the spike, but whatever. Auburn came out with the win 30-28 against Arkansas. Bo Nix, 187 passing and a touchdown plus 1 rushing. Tank Bigsby, 146 rushing. Anthony Schwartz, 10 catches, 100 yards and a touchdown. They had 3 sacks in that game and a blocked punt for a touchdown. South Carolina had a big win over Vanderbilt, 41-7. Colin Hill, 196 passing plus 2 rushing touchdowns. Kevin Harris went off, 171 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. Defensively had 3 sacks and 2 turnovers. I think Auburn, they might be in for a surprise here. Auburn, I think, is way overrated. South Carolina, they're 1-2, and that's about where they are. If Auburn plays like they did the last 2 games, South Carolina will beat them. But I think they'll bounce back just enough to get a win over South Carolina. I think Auburn wins in a close game. All right, Kentucky and Tennessee, I don't know what to think here. Kentucky's coming off a win over Mississippi State. They won 20-42. Offensively, they were terrible. Terry Wilson, they only had 157 total yards, put it that way. Defensively, though, they forced 6 turnovers and had a pick 6, and that's how they were able to win. Tennessee's coming off a 44-21 loss to Georgia. Garantano, 215 passing, 2 touchdowns. They only had 214 total yards, though, and 3 turnovers. They had a fumble return themselves. It's hard. I'm not sure who to go with here. They're both kind of inconsistent. I've been going against Kentucky, and they keep playing better than I thought. So, but I do think I'll go Tennessee here. Maybe I think they probably. I mean, Kentucky's offense is not great anyway, so I'll go Tennessee in a close one there. All right, Navy, East Carolina. Navy's coming off of 31-29 win against Temple. Nelson Smith ran for 122 touchdowns and ran for 251 with that triple option. ECU killed USF 44-24. Holton Ahlers, 222 passing, 3 touchdowns. Rajay Harris, 115 rushing, 2 touchdowns. Defensively had 5 sacks and 2 turnovers. I think this will be a pretty interesting game. Maybe high scoring, but I'm going to give the edge to Navy here. I think their offense will hold it just long enough to win. All right, Texas State and South Alabama. Texas State, they got killed by Troy 37-17. Brady McBride only had 93 passing yards and a touchdown. They really didn't do anything. Whereas South Alabama, their last game was a few weeks ago. They got killed by UAB 42-10. Leverage 14-29. Winston State 1 touchdown and a pick. It could be him or Desmond Charter. Not sure who's going to start at quarterback. Carlos Davis had a nice game, 105 rushing yards. I think this is tough because they both might be pretty good offenses. They might be pretty high scoring. Oh man, I'm not sure who to go with here. I'll go Texas State. I'll say they bounce back and they get a win. Our USF and Temple. USF got killed by ECU 44-24, but Jordan McLeod actually probably had his best game with 298 passing yards. Temple, they played their first game last week at a close loss to Navy 31-29. Anthony Russo, 206 passing, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. USF has looked terrible. They looked a little better on offense against ECU last week. Temple, it's only their second game, but they almost beat a decent Navy team. Until South Florida proves it, I'm not going to pick them this year. They've looked pretty terrible. So I'll go Temple in a close. I think it'll be a little bit closer win than people think, but I'll go Temple. All right, Liberty and Syracuse. This is an interesting one. Liberty's 4-0. They have a really good offense. Syracuse is 1-3. Liberty's actually favored over a big ACC team. Liberty, they beat ULM 40-7. Offensively, they didn't do very well, but man, defensively they only held the other team 198 yards. They had 3 touchdowns. The ULM punter had a horrible game. He dropped a punt in the end zone that Liberty recovered for a touchdown. Then he had a punt blocked that was recovered for a touchdown. Then when he got one off, it got returned for a touchdown. So Liberty's special teams was actually awesome that day. And they have a really good offense. Who knows about this game? Syracuse, they lost to Duke 38-24. Tommy DeVito, 255 passing, 2 touchdowns. Taj Harris, 6 catches, 138 yards and a touchdown. They gave up 645 yards to a Duke offense that's been struggling. They did force 4 turnovers and had a fumble return for a touchdown there. Liberty is favored. I think this will be pretty high scoring, but I'm actually going to go Syracuse to get the win. But that actually should be that might be like a 63-56 kind of game there. All right, Kansas, West Virginia in the Big 12. Kansas, a few weeks ago, they lost 47-7 to Oklahoma State. They only had 193 yards of offense. Nothing really good to say. West Virginia, a couple weeks ago, they had a really nice win against Baylor in overtime, 27-21. Jarrett Doege, 211 passing, a touchdown. He did throw 2 picks, though. And they had 4 turnovers in that game. Defensively, they had 6 sacks and 2 turnovers. I think West Virginia is pretty good this year. Kansas seems pretty horrible. I'll go West Virginia with the win there. All right, Army and UTSA, both pretty good teams, both winning records right now. Army had a close win against the Citadel, 14-9. Quarterback Jamel Jones didn't do very well passing, 4 of 10, 75 yards passing, 1 touchdown, but he threw 2 picks there. Plus, he had a 49 rushing and a touchdown. Defensively, he had 3 sacks and 2 turnovers, which helped them win that game. UTSA held a really good BYU offense down pretty well. They only lost 27-20. Loyola Narcisse was 17 of 20, 229, and 2 touchdowns. This will be an interesting one to see if UTSA can kind of slow Army's triple option down. Citadel was able to do that, but Citadel also has a triple option as well, and they just kind of held on to it. I'm going to go with Army, though, getting the win here, but that'll be pretty close game. A lot of really close ones this weekend, really. Western Kentucky, UAB. Western Kentucky, they got killed by Marshall 38-14. They had 2 quarterbacks here. Kavaris Thomas, 9 of 18, 148 and touchdown, plus 1 rushing. They had 3 turnovers in that game. Whereas UAB, their last game was a few weeks ago against UTSA. They won 21-13. Bryson Lucero had an okay game. He passed for 195 and 3 touchdowns, but he threw 3 interceptions. They turned it over 4 times as a team, which they can't do. Spencer Brown ran for 144. Defensively, they had 4 sacks in that game. I think they should be able to get by Western Kentucky. Western Kentucky's kind of a weird hot and cold team, but UAB's been, the past few years, been a really solid team overall. So UAB there. Possible upset here, Louisville and Notre Dame. This is actually the last of the noon games. Louisville, they're 1-3. Notre Dame, they just came off a big win over FSU. Louisville lost to Georgia Tech 46-27. Malik Cunningham, 229 passing and 2 touchdowns, plus 2 rushing. Javian Hawkins, 155 rushing. They put up 471 yards of offense, but they turned over 3 times. They can't do that against Notre Dame. They should be able to move it. They have a pretty good offense against Notre Dame. This could be relatively high scoring. Notre Dame is favored by 17. I'm not sure it'll be that much. Notre Dame beat a pretty bad Florida State team, 42-26. Ian Book, 201 passing, 2 touchdowns. Kyron Williams, 185 rushing, 2 touchdowns. Chris Tyree, 103 rushing and 1 touchdown. Wide receiver Javon McKinley, 5 catches, 107 yards. Had 554 yards of offense. there. Defensively had 4 sacks. I will go with Notre Dame for the win here, but I think it'll be a little bit closer than that line of 17. All right, those are my noon games. Check out all my 3:30 games and my primetime games. Peace.